Listen carefully, because this isn't about games. It's about awareness, self-respect, and power. When a man truly wants a woman, he doesn't just chase her, he observes her. He studies her mindset, her boundaries, her reactions, not always consciously, but through behavior. And if you don't understand these tests, you might lose yourself trying to pass something you were never meant to. A man who is seriously interested in a woman will often start by observing what she accepts, not just what she says. He may show effort at first and then slowly reduce it. Fewer calls, delayed replies, or less planning, just to see if the energy is still rewarded. This is not always a calculated move. Sometimes it's instinct. He's trying to understand where he stands and what level of effort is required to keep her attention. If a woman continues to give the same level of warmth, availability, and attention despite receiving less in return, it quietly signals that her standards are flexible. Over time, that flexibility can turn into a pattern where she gives more and receives less without even realizing it. Men pay close attention to consistency. If a woman says she values respect but overlooks small acts of disrespect, like canceled plans without apology, or being treated as an afterthought, it creates confusion. Words lose meaning when actions don't match. On the other hand, when a woman calmly steps back or addresses the behavior without drama, it communicates clarity. She shows that access to her time and energy is something that must be earned and maintained, not assumed. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being grounded in self-respect. Sometimes the test comes in subtle forms, like offering last-minute plans instead of thoughtful ones. If she drops everything to be available, it may suggest that her time isn't as valuable. If she politely declines or suggests a better plan, it sets a tone that she values quality and intention. Men who are genuinely interested don't get discouraged by standards. They adjust to meet them. In fact, clear standards often increase respect because they remove uncertainty. What matters most is emotional alignment with those standards. It's not enough to say you expect more. Your behavior has to reflect it naturally. When a woman knows her worth, she doesn't chase consistency, she expects it. She doesn't over-explain her boundaries, she lives them. That quiet confidence becomes a signal that filters out those who are not serious and attracts those who are willing to show up with intention and effort. A man who is genuinely interested will often pay attention to how a woman handles her emotions, especially in moments of uncertainty. He may take longer to reply, become slightly distant, or shift his energy just enough to create a reaction. This isn't always about manipulation. Sometimes it's a way of understanding whether she is emotionally steady or easily shaken. He's observing if her mood depends entirely on his attention, or if she remains grounded within herself regardless of external changes. When communication slows down, many women feel the urge to fill the silence. They may double text, overthink every word, or assume something is wrong. This reaction, while human, can unintentionally signal emotional dependence. It shows that a small change in his behavior has the power to disrupt her peace. On the other hand, when a woman maintains her composure and continues focusing on her own life, it communicates strength. She doesn't ignore him, but she also doesn't abandon herself just to maintain his attention. Emotional control is not about suppressing feelings. It's about managing them with awareness. A man notices whether she reacts instantly out of fear or responds with clarity and patience. If she questions him aggressively or jumps to conclusions, it can create tension and make the connection feel unstable. But when she approaches situations calmly, without accusations or panic, it builds a sense of emotional safety. That stability is deeply attractive because it shows maturity and confidence. There are also moments when disagreements or misunderstandings arise. These situations reveal more than perfect conversations ever could. If a woman becomes overly reactive, raises her voice, or lets emotions take over completely, it can shift how she is perceived. But if she expresses herself clearly, listens, and stays composed even when she's upset, it shows a high level of emotional intelligence. That kind of control is rare and it stands out. Maintaining emotional balance doesn't mean tolerating poor behavior. It means choosing how to respond rather than being controlled by impulse. When a woman is centered, she doesn't chase reassurance or demand constant validation. Her calm presence sends a message that she is secure within herself, and that security naturally commands respect and deeper interest. A man who is truly interested pays close attention to whether a woman has a life beyond him. He notices how she spends her time, what she's passionate about, and whether her happiness depends on his presence or exists independently. Sometimes he may step back slightly, not to disappear, but to see if she continues living fully or if everything slows down in his absence. This reveals whether she is centered in her own world or gradually making him the center of it. If a woman quickly rearranges her entire schedule, cancels her plans, or becomes constantly available, it can signal that her priorities are shifting too fast. While it may come from excitement or genuine interest, it can unintentionally reduce the sense of balance. A man may begin to feel that he doesn't have to earn her time because it's always there. Over time, this can lead to a dynamic where he invests less effort while she invests more, creating an uneven connection. Independence is not about being distant or uninterested. It's about having a strong sense of self. When a woman continues to pursue her goals, maintain her friendships, and protect her personal time, it shows that her life is already full. She's not waiting to be completed. She's choosing to share her space. That energy changes the dynamic completely. It shifts the interaction from need to choice, and that distinction carries a lot of weight. A man observes how she talks about her ambitions and whether she actively works toward them. He notices if she has structure in her day, or if she simply reacts to whatever comes her way. A woman with direction naturally commands respect because she demonstrates discipline and purpose. She becomes someone who adds value to a relationship rather than depending on it for fulfillment. There are also subtle moments, like how she responds when he asks to see her. If she always says yes immediately, it may seem like her time isn't limited. But when she balances her availability with her own commitments, it shows that being part of her life is something to be earned, not assumed. This doesn't push a man away. It often encourages him to step up, plan better, and invest more intentionally. True independence creates emotional stability. It allows a woman to enjoy connection without losing herself in it. She doesn't feel the need to constantly check in, seek reassurance, or control the situation because her sense of security comes from within. That quiet confidence becomes attractive because it reflects strength, self-respect, and a life that is already meaningful on its own. A man who is truly interested will often pay attention to how a woman responds when her limits are gently challenged. These moments are rarely obvious or extreme at first. They show up in small, everyday situations, a last-minute change of plans, a casual joke that crosses the line, or a request that feels slightly uncomfortable. He's not just focused on the situation itself, he's watching how she handles it. Does she go along with it to keep things smooth? Or does she stay aligned with what feels right for her? When a woman overlooks these small moments to avoid tension, it can quietly signal that her boundaries are flexible. She may tell herself it's not a big deal, but repeated patterns create expectations. If she consistently accepts behavior that doesn't fully respect her time, energy, or comfort, it becomes the new standard. Over time, this can lead to a dynamic where her needs are minimized because they were never clearly reinforced. Clear boundaries don't require confrontation or harshness. They show up in calm, confident responses. If something doesn't sit right, addressing it directly but respectfully creates clarity. It shows that she values herself enough to speak up without needing to escalate the situation. A simple shift in tone or a firm but composed response can completely change how she is perceived. It communicates that she is aware, grounded, and not easily swayed by pressure. Men often respect boundaries more when they are consistent. If a woman enforces a limit one day but ignores it the next, it creates confusion. Consistency removes that uncertainty. It teaches others how to treat her without her having to repeat herself constantly. This doesn't push the right person away. It actually builds trust because everything feels clear and predictable. There are also moments when a man may intentionally or unintentionally test how far he can go. This isn't always about disrespect. It can be curiosity about her standards. When she holds her ground without over-explaining or apologizing, it sends a strong message. She shows that her boundaries are not negotiable based on someone else's expectations. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They don't block connection. They shape it. When a woman is firm in what she accepts and what she doesn't, she creates space for a healthier dynamic. She doesn't need to control anyone's behavior. She simply controls what she allows into her space. That quiet certainty naturally leads to deeper respect and more intentional effort from someone who genuinely values her. A man who is genuinely interested often pays attention to how a woman sees herself, especially in moments when validation isn't immediately given. He may step back slightly, offer less reassurance, or stop complimenting as frequently, not always to play games, but to observe whether her confidence is internal or dependent on him. He's trying to understand if her sense of worth remains steady or if it fluctuates based on his attention. When a woman begins to seek constant validation, it can subtly shift the dynamic. Repeatedly asking for reassurance, overanalyzing his tone, or needing confirmation of his feelings may signal uncertainty within herself. Even if she is strong in many ways, these patterns can make it seem like her confidence relies on external approval. Over time, this can reduce the natural attraction because it places pressure on him to constantly fill that gap. Self-worth shows up in how a woman carries herself without needing to prove anything. She doesn't compete for attention, compare herself to others, or feel the need to convince someone to choose her. If a man pulls back slightly and she immediately chases or tries to secure his interest, it can indicate that she doubts her own value. But when she remains composed and continues living her life without seeking constant reassurance, it sends a very different message. A man notices whether she tolerates behavior that doesn't match her standards. If she accepts inconsistency, mixed signals, or a lack of effort without addressing it, it can reflect how she values herself. On the other hand, when she naturally distances herself from situations that don't align with her expectations, it shows strength. She doesn't need to argue or demand better. Her actions speak clearly. There are also subtle cues in how she responds to compliments or attention. If she downplays herself, rejects positive words, or seems uncomfortable owning her worth, it can reveal insecurity. But when she accepts appreciation with ease, without arrogance or doubt, it reflects a healthy level of self-respect. That balance is powerful because it feels genuine and grounded. Self-worth is not something that needs to be announced or defended. It is reflected in consistent behavioral choices and energy. When a woman truly values herself, she doesn't chase clarity, attention, or affection. She recognizes when something is aligned and when it's not, and she adjusts accordingly. That quiet confidence becomes magnetic because it shows that her value is not up for negotiation or dependent on anyone else's opinion. A man who is seriously interested pays close attention to how a woman handles pressure, especially when things don't go smoothly. Moments of disagreement, misunderstanding, or emotional tension reveal more than easy, perfect interactions ever could. These situations are not always planned, but they become defining points where he observes how she reacts when she feels challenged, unheard, or uncomfortable. When pressure builds, some people respond instantly with emotion, raising their voice, interrupting, or reacting impulsively. While this reaction may come from frustration, it can create instability in the connection. A man may begin to feel that small issues quickly turn into big conflicts, making the relationship harder to navigate. On the other hand, when a woman takes a moment to process before responding, it shows control and awareness. She doesn't ignore her feelings, but she chooses how to express them in a way that maintains clarity rather than chaos. Handling pressure also shows in how she communicates during disagreements. If she becomes defensive, shifts blame, or avoids accountability, it can weaken trust. But when she listens, expresses her perspective clearly, and remains open to understanding the other side, it creates a sense of balance. A man notices whether the conversation moves toward resolution or turns into a cycle of tension. The ability to stay grounded while addressing issues signals maturity and emotional strength. There are also situations where plans change unexpectedly or something doesn't go her way. These small moments of inconvenience can reveal patience or frustration. If she reacts with irritation or negativity over minor issues, it can affect how enjoyable the connection feels. But if she adapts calmly and maintains a positive attitude, it shows flexibility and resilience. That kind of energy makes interactions feel lighter and more stable. Pressure can also come in the form of silence, distance, or uncertainty. A man may step back briefly, not necessarily to create conflict, but to see how she handles the unknown. If she immediately assumes the worst or tries to force clarity, it can create tension. But when she remains composed and allows space without losing her sense of self, it reflects confidence. She trusts the process instead of trying to control it. Responding well under pressure doesn't mean accepting poor treatment or staying silent when something matters. It means choosing a balanced approach, being firm when needed, calm when possible, and clear at all times. This ability to stay steady, even when emotions are involved, creates a sense of reliability. It shows that she can handle real-life situations without letting them disrupt her sense of self, and that stability naturally builds deeper respect and connection.